Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. So now we have some more Amazon Rings of Power news to talk about with the showrunner Patrick McKay coming out and talking in this new Empire article, which I've covered before. You can check out in one of my latest videos. He was repeating a statement that he has said multiple times that is just flat out wrong, and we're going to see why. And he also said that the show is not trying to live up to the standards of Peter Jackson. Well, it better not try, because it's not even set in the same time period as Lord of the Rings trilogy that Peter Jackson made. So let's get into it. On comicbook.com, Rings of Power showrunner says the series won't try to compete with Lord of the Rings film trilogy. It can't, it never will. Prime Video's Lord of the Rings Rings of Power series is debuting in September, but don't expect a remake of the beloved Peter Jackson films. The new series promises to be very different from the trilogy. In fact, it takes place 1,000 years before Lord of the Rings. We've talked about that many times before. Recently, concept artist John Howe, who also worked on Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit trilogies, said, "This isn't the Middle Earth you remember." Co-showrunner Patrick McKay made it clear that they're not trying to compete with Jackson. He said, "Anyone approaching Lord of the Rings on screen would be wrong not to think about how wonderfully right Jackson got so much of it." McKay tells the magazine, "But we're admirers from afar. That's it. The Rings of Power doesn't try to compete with him." Now, there were people that were saying, look, Lord of the Rings had to change a few things and they weren't happy with a few things that happened in the trilogy that Peter Jackson made because there were changes that were made from the books to the movies. But when you listen to why they made those changes, it made more sense from a filmmaking standpoint. And when you listen to and you watch the appendices, Lord of the Rings Return of the King appendices on the DVDs, you listen to what the filmmakers had to say. We have to change a few things, but we're trying to keep it as close as we can to the essence of Tolkien. They were trying to keep it as close as they could to keep it in the feeling of Tolkien's work. Now, that's not what's going to happen here, as we'll see. So McKay said, "You can psych yourself out in keeping up with the Joneses, but one of the mantras on this was, go back to the source material. What would Tolkien do?" Now, he's been saying this many times, and I've covered this in many videos before. You can check out my Lord of the Rings playlist. Here's why. Check it out on Bounding Into Comics. I've seen this many times before, talked about this many times before, but it says, he stated, so this is McKay, "We have the rights solely to the Fellowship of the Ring, the Two Towers, the Return of the King, the appendices, and the Hobbit. And that's it. We do not have the rights to the Silmarillion, Unfinished Tales, the History of Middle-earth, or any of those other books." So they only have the rights to the trilogy and the Hobbit, and that's it. All they get from the appendices in Return of the King is a rough outline and timeline of what happened in the First and Second Age, in what they are covering in their show. They don't have the rights to the Silmarillion, Unfinished Tales, and the History of Middle-earth, which has a vast, extensive detailing of what happened and a history of what happened in the creation of Middle-earth all the way through the First and Second Ages. What they have to use is not source material enough to build a show out of, which is exactly what they're doing. So the showrunner is repeating this narrative, this false narrative that they actually have source material to go back on to create this show, when they don't, because they only have the rights to Fellowship, Two Towers, Return of the King, its appendices, and the Hobbit. They don't have the Silmarillion, like right here, which is the Bible of the First and Second Age for Tolkien's work, all right? They don't have that. So the showrunner is coming out again and just, I don't want to call it flat out lying, but repeating this narrative, this false narrative, that they have source material to use for the show. And we know they don't, because they are creating original characters for the show. Original characters that never existed. And they are making characters like Galadriel into something she never was. So I don't have any hopes going into the show when it comes out in September. I don't think it's going to be any good. I've got multiple videos on it you can go check out. And this latest one from the showrunner is just another repeating of this narrative, this false narrative that they have source material to go back on when they absolutely do not. They don't have the rights to the source material that they are adapting for their time period in this show. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Don't forget to smash the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, share this video out there, and thank you to my members at the Two Towers level, DanielJames and Straith, and we'll see you in the next one.